Good morning. Hey, my friends, how are you this morning? So today we are on part 33 of the Phil Spector trial. Detective Mark Lilienfeld is still on the stand, and we are starting his redirect, I think. So, good morning, Judy and Nancy. Thank you guys for coming out. And thank you, Judy, for your little positive affirmations that you do every morning. I enjoy those. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm feeling like it's gonna rain or something. My body feels it. I don't know if it is. I don't know if I didn't sleep or what. I have that I'm gonna flare feeling, you know what I mean? Hey, Jennifer.
The defense counsel asked you, and first I thought I'd start off with almost some jurisdictional questions. About for want of a better term, jurisdiction between the sheriff's department and the coroner's office. And I think you even mentioned a government code. Are the rules about who investigates what I'm seeing, everything like this?
There's a body of law.
And although it's a body of law, it comes down to practical rules for you as a member of the Sheriff's Homicide Bureau and the coroner's office to deal with. Is that correct?
Yes.
And basically, what is it?
Weird. It was frozen. I will never understand StreamYard. Never understand StreamYard. Nancy. So I clicked the little thing to put my picture on the bottom left to make it full screen so you guys can see the full screen. And it doesn't do it on StreamYard. And I look over at my channel and it's like that on my channel. It makes no sense. And StreamYard is telling me, wait, page is unresponsive. But it's already done what I told it to do. I don't understand StreamYard. It's retarded. I know that's not you're not supposed to say that word anymore. That's another thing that I don't understand, because that used to be a medical term. We said that word all the time. Honestly, that's what we called kids, mentally retarded. That was like when we gave report at the hospital. That was what we called them. They were mentally retarded. If they were mentally retarded, they were mentally retarded. That was a medical term, but you're not allowed to say that word anymore. Anyway, I digress. I didn't mean to go there. Anyway. Okay. I think it's doing what it's supposed to do now. Let's continue.
The victim's property and clothing that is on the victim, essentially under the government code, belongs too falls within the authority and the jurisdiction of the coroner's office, which is a separate, distinct entity than law enforcement, than the sheriff's department or any other agency. Anything else that's not specifically attached to the victim remains within the authority of the investigative agency that's investigating the particular.
So, for example, in this situation, Ms. Clarkson, and you talked about it earlier, had a handbag with her, the leopard skin purse, correct?
Yes.
Now, the contents of that person, we'll just talk about this for a moment. Who would be responsible for collecting, inventorying, and then safeguarding those items?
The government, 27,000 series of the government code dictates that a decedent's property that is on them falls within the jurisdiction of the coroner. They're charged with caretaking that property.
But if there was some property that might belong to the victim but was not on that person, was 20 feet away and may have some evidentiary value, who would be responsible for collecting that and preserving it?
The law enforcement agency.
So that's kind of how this breaks down.
Yes.
Is that correct? So when defense counsel asked you a question, if the coroner, Dr. Pena, directed you to do one thing or another, I think your answer was he did not. Is that right?
That's correct.
He did not ask you to fingerprint the table with the drawer there that was near Miss Clarkson. Is that
That's correct?
But if he had, I mean, is that something that you would necessarily follow? Would you consider it? Or do the rules that you just told us about pretty much decide who's in charge of what here and how the investigation is conducted?
I would certainly consider it and think about it. And if it was something that was a good idea, we're not closed-minded. We're not horses with blinders. I'm going to listen to a good idea. And if it's legal and ethical and I think it's going to help gather evidence, I'm certainly going to be open-minded enough to do it.
But it's not something, he's not your superior in this situation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Defense counsel asked you, let me just follow up on the jurisdictional matter because he asked you about this too. This obviously happened in the city of Alhambra.
Yes.
But yet the sheriff's homicide bureau did the investigation, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your understanding was that the Alhambra Police Department was at first on scene.
Yes.
How, and you've told us that you've been a member of the Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau for a long time. How's that happen? Why did the Sheriff's Department end up investigating this instead of the Alhambra Police Department?
The Sheriff's Department provides that service. They're mandated under the Constitution that if there are smaller municipal agencies within the county and they need assistance with certain law enforcement services, the sheriff is compelled to provide that. So some of these agencies, although they're very capable, either because of financial funding or other resources like that they lack, they'll call us in to help because we're the largest agency and the Constitution in California mandates that. So like a bomb squad or helicopters, all the larger, more expensive resources, including homicide investigations, are very costly. And they take a certain amount of resources and assets and expertise. So we provide that to many of the other police departments throughout Los Angeles County. There's 35 or 40 of them that we provide the homicide service for them.
You mentioned that you met Stan White at this barbecue in an unincorporated area of Whittier. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So that would be Los Angeles County and no municipality in that area. Is that right?
Yes.
If a murder occurred in that area, who would be the investigating agency?
Los Angeles Sheriff's.
And then, as you mentioned in your earlier answer, there are a number of smaller municipalities that, because of the Constitution or government codes or whatever, if a murder occurs in their jurisdiction, the Sheriff's Department does the investigation.
Yes.
And some cities have that relationship with the Sheriff's Department, some don't.
Correct.
Thank you. Defense counsel also asked you about some experiments that you conducted and conversations that you had in at the defendant's home while you were there investigating this crime. Is that right?
Yes.
Sudi, can we have people 60? And Your Honor, I'm going to ask to put up people 60 for identification. This is a diagram that we've had up on the board earlier. Thank you. Again, inviting your attention to people 60 for identification. You've seen this before. First, Mr. Bruno, I'd ask you about the water fountain and if you had any conversations out there during the 30 hours or so that you were at this crime scene. And you answered yes.
That's correct.
And I think you said between 12 and 15. Is that right?
Yes.
May I approach, please? Yes. During any of those 12 to 15 conversations near the water fountain, about where we see the automobile and people 60 for identification, did you have any of those conversations in that area?
Yes.
And was the person you were talking to understanding what they were saying?
No.
Not once?
No.
You mentioned a sound experiment that you conducted. Mr. Brunon asked you about that. Could you tell us about that? Explain in a little bit greater detail what you exactly did?
I didn't actually conduct it. I just asked some specialists in that field from the Los Angeles County Department of Health. They have equipment and expertise in conducting sound experiments, and two gentlemen from that agency came out with equipment, and I introduced them to people from our crime lab firearms unit, and they got together and ran the experiment. I just observed, and the experiment was to determine the audibility while seated in the car under the same set of circumstances of hearing the gunshot.
So you were there while these experiments or tests were being conducted?
Yes.
And this was February 4th of 2003?
Yes.
In the morning hours?
Actually, I believe it was in the afternoon hours.
I think you said you arrived at 10 or 11 on the 4th.
On the 4th, that's correct.
Okay. So sometime after that. Well, to the best you could, since you were there, could you explain to us exactly?
Why? To check what's his face's D'Souza's story? To see if he was telling the truth about being able to hear the gunshot? Why else would they? That seems weird to me. Like, did they not believe him that he heard the shot?
Exactly what this experiment with the sound was all about?
They use the term hygienist, and the hygienist directed Mr. D'Souza to park the car in the same spot it was parked in. They had him turn the radio up and turn the on to the same volume that he had it when the equipment. One of the hygienists was actually inside the car at that time, and then a second hygienist was inside of the home with some Sheriff's Department personnel from our firearms unit. They had an identical weapon as the murder weapon, a Colt 2-inch Cobra 38 caliber revolver, and they had identical ammunition as was used, the Smith & Wesson plus P ammunition, and then they fired off a series of these rounds and conducted their test in that manner.
And was the object, well, exactly what was the object of this?
Well, the object was to determine, again, the level of being able to hear while seated inside the car under those conditions, being able to hear a gunshot from inside the home or not.
Using People's 60 for identification, the diagram that we have up on the screen, was the car, did you use the same Mercedes?
Yes, sir.
And was it parked in approximately the same location that we see in this diagram, People's 60 for identification?
Yes, sir.
And you were present?
I was,
right?
yes.
Were you ever seated in the car?
No.
Who was in the car? Trying to tell if they could hear it or not.
One of the hygienists from the Department of Health.
And the results were, what was the result of the test?
The results were that you could clearly hear the gunshot from both inside the car and anywhere on the property. It was loud.
So whether you thought it was a gunshot or a big pow or whatever, it was clearly audible.
Yes.
Thank you. Defense counsel also asked you some questions about the contents of the briefcase that was found at the scene. Remember we talked about that?
Yes,
And you saw an exhibit earlier about it, and I will put it up again, but this was the black briefcase in the chair that appeared to be very similar to the one that Miss Clarkson was found in the foyer of the home. Is that correct?
yes,
And it was black and had a PS on it. Is that right?
yes,
And there were a number of items in it, and you went through this with defense counsel. Some you booked into evidence and some you didn't.
yes.
How did you make that? To assist us in this, I'm going to ask Sudie to put up people 68 for identification. We see in the photograph A the briefcase that we're talking about, correct?
Yes,
So there are a lot of things inside, and you kind of detailed those for Mr. Brunon, but you must have gone through some mental exercise or thought process to decide what you booked into evidence and what you didn't.
I did.
What was that?
Items that were inside the valise that were of evidentiary value, meaning did they prove or disprove something, or do they have the potential to prove or disprove something? Those things were seized and held as evidence. The other things that were meaningless, at least at that time, at least to me, were subsequently either left at the scene or later they were released to Mr. Spector's attorneys at that time.
And that last answer, you used the word have the potential. This was early in the investigation, correct?
Yes,
And so you might see something that clearly had evidentiary value, or you might see something that had, well, the potential of evidentiary value depending on what the investigation showed.
yes,
Right? Now, there, among other things, were mints in the briefcase, correct?
yes.
You didn't book those into evidence.
I did not.
But there was this 3-pack of Viagra. How many were in it when you found it?
There was a plastic foil-backed container for Viagra. There was one Viagra pill in it, and then a spot for 2 pills that were missing.
And you booked that into evidence.
I did.
So you made a determination that that either had evidentiary value or the potential of it?
Yes,
Why?
Excuse me, I'm objecting that that's irrelevant to what he speculated the value might be later on.
Overruled. He can indicate why he booked it. It's his thought process. You can cross-examine him. You may answer.
I thought at that time, as I do today, that this murder had sexual overtones to it, and that the Viagra would prove or disprove certain facts. The way the physical crime scene was laid out, the home was dark, there were candles lit on the fireplace, there was alcohol out in front of the fireplace on the coffee table, there was alcohol in the bathroom off the foyer. Miss Clarkson, the way she was dressed, the person that she was, the person that the defendant was, all those facts in my mind played into a sexually motivated murder, and the Viagra was a piece of evidence that would perhaps prove later on to be.
The person that she was. What is that supposed to mean? She was an actress that was working as a hostess at a restaurant. What? I don't like that insinuation. What was that supposed to mean?
Important.
So you booked that, but not the mints, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. You were also asked some questions about DNA and the bullets, the cartridges in the murder weapon item number 1 that you booked in evidence. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you learned some of this information later on. Is that right? Mr. Brunon asked you about this.
Yes.
DNA on it. Do you know where the swabbings were taken for that DNA?
I do.
And where were they taken?
They were taken from the tips of the bullet, the actual bullet itself that would travel down the barrel, then strike a target. That's actually called a bullet. The entire item is sometimes called a bullet, but it's sometimes called a live cartridge. As I explained earlier, the silver portion of the cartridge stays in the gun. The primary gets struck by the hammer of the gun. There's an explosion. Gases are built up, and they send the projectile down the end of the barrel, and it strikes a target. In this case, the DNA that was recovered was the blood from Miss Clarkson that had spattered back after the gunshot was fired.
Excuse me. I'm going to object
The
to that.
objection is sustained.
Yeah, may that be stricken.
It's stricken. Jury's admonished.
Well, we recovered from the tips of the bullets that remained.
Well, I don't think he's qualified.
May we approach?
Just a second. Are you aware where it was recovered from other than what you might have been told?
Yes.
All right, then you may answer and the objection is over. Yes.
Your Honor, I don't think he has the sign. Maybe we ought to approach him. So
Well, let me hear what the question, you going to ask another question or not?
No,
All right. Let me have the question read back. I'll make a determination whether I think we need to approach.
It was recovered from the tips of the bullets.
not the objection is that you can't see this, so he would only know this from someone telling him test results. She's not qualified to repeat.
Having heard the objections now and factoring in the question, do you have personal knowledge other than what you were told as to whether something was recovered from the tip of any bullet?
I've been present at the crime lab. I've seen those items. I've spoken to criminalist Renteria.
Factoring out any conversations you may answer, you may not include conversations from others. Now, why don't you pose a new question?
Based on what you saw at the crime lab, are you able to tell us where those swabs were taken on the bullets?
Yes,
And where were they taken?
the tip of the bullet,
Not,
the actual end of the projectile.
Your Honor, could we put up people's 66 for identification, please? It was previously marked. This is item number 1 that the Sheriff's Department called it. Do you have your, oh, you do have your pointer. Great. So the tips of the bullets, and as we look at the line of bullets there, we have the 5 Smith & Wesson plus P's, correct? Going from left to right?
Yes, sir.
And then a space and then the spear, right?
Correct.
And as we look at the bullets, the first one is the expended round. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, just for this, what you saw at the crime lab is that what part of the bullet was, thank you, Sudie, was swabbed?
At the upper portion of that photo is the actual bullet, the projectile that travels down the barrel and strikes a target where the red arrow is. And exactly where the red arrow is, to my knowledge, is a portion that was swabbed for blood.
Not the, and I may not be using the right word, but not the bottom of the bullet, not the end of the cartridge, right?
It's called the head stamp of the cartridge case. And the answer is no, not the bottom of the cartridge.
So based on what you saw at the crime lab, the bottom of that cartridge, the head stamp, was never swabbed, just the tips.
To my knowledge, that's correct.
Thank you, Sudie. Could I just have a moment, please,
Yes.
Your Honor? Can we go to 65? And then I need Mr. Bruno. At some point, I'm going to need to use defense exhibit 4W or WWW.
Triple W?
All right, but not quite yet. Mr. Brunon asked you some questions about, and it took us a little bit to figure it out, but I think we know now, microphotos. Remember those?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, we're going to put up people 65 for identification here. I think you saw this earlier at the, when I asked you questions on direct examination. Do you recognize this exhibit?
I do.
And these photographs, you didn't take these photographs,
I did not.
but you have seen them.
Yes.
To your knowledge, where were they taken?
At the Sheriff's Crime Lab in the photo studio of the lab.
Is it fair to say that you spent some time over there at the Sheriff's Crime Lab in connection with this case?
Yes, I was present when those photos were taken.
And maybe we can zoom in on A. Can we do that, Sudie? So we're going to look at 65A here. Maybe we're going to look at all of them eventually. So you were there when this photograph was taken.
Yes, sir.
And I'll go through all the photographs, but I'll just ask you this question now. When the photographs were taken at the crime lab and you were present when these were taken, was the gun in its condition with respect to blood and dried blood and on the handles and on the gun, was it the same condition that you found it when you picked it up next to Miss Clarkson's leg at the crime scene?
It's ambiguous about the same condition. And part of it, he wouldn't be qualified to know for any trace items.
Does it appear to be in the same condition? With that proviso, I'll allow him to answer the question.
The answer is yes. It appeared exactly the same as it had appeared at the crime scene earlier.
Could we go to B, please, Susie? We're going to look at this next photograph, B, in the same exhibit. Again, this same revolver appears to be in the same condition as when you picked it up.
Yes, sir.
And some of the next photographs I think will be more helpful. C. What exactly are we looking at here?
That's the right-hand side of the gun. The cylinder is open just above the grip with a Colt logo. You could see that there's a defect or a discoloration. That's dried blood on the frame of the weapon.
And does this appear to be, when the photograph was taken and you were there, appear to be in the same condition as when you recovered the gun?
Yes.
And you mentioned, in fact, you had some questions back and forth with Mr. Brunon about whether this blood was dried or not. What's your best recollection as to what appeared to be blood to you when you picked up the gun near Miss Clarkson's foot? Was it wet or dry?
Dry.
And it appeared to be like it is even now in this photograph.
Yes.
Thank you. Can we go to the next one? I think it'll be D. Really, same questions here. This is photograph D in the same exhibit. People's, I think it's 65. Yes. Does this appear to be as you found the gun that day, February 3rd, 2003?
Yes.
Okay. Next photograph, E in 65. What are we looking at here, Detective?
That's the Colt insignia for the corporation, and that's embossed on a piece of metal that's embossed actually on the brown wood handle of the gun. And there's blood. You can see it clearly on the C at the O of the word Colt, and you can see it actually around the figure of the horse.
And that appears to be dried blood as it was when you found the gun. Is that right?
Yes.
Can I just have a moment, Your Honor? Maybe we can go to the next photograph.
Why they swap.
And what are we looking at now?
That's the first three letters of the word Cobra, which is engraved on the barrel of the weapon. Underneath it, obviously, is point and the word special, although you can only read the 5 letters of special. And those letters and numerals, obviously, you can see the contrast and the defect in them because they're filled with dried blood.
All right. Thank you. And I think that concludes this exhibit. So when you were at the crime lab and these photographs were taken, where'd the gun been between when you recovered it and there? It was booked into evidence.
Yes.
Right. That was, I think you talked earlier in maybe it was your cross-examination about how you were kind of like a conductor. Do you remember those questions?
I do.
Okay. You were trying to explain exactly your function at the crime scene and the conductor skills you were asking people to do different things. That right?
Yes, sir.
And with respect to various pieces of evidence, you tell them to point them out, tell them to photograph it, and then collect it and later book it into evidence.
That's correct.
And is all the evidence that we've talked about, it was all booked into evidence with the Sheriff's Department. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Like the gun, right?
Yes.
So at some point, the gun's booked into evidence and later is transported to the Sheriff's Crime Lab, right?
That's correct.
And one of the first things that would be done with the gun is to photograph it in this kind of...
Your Honor.
The objection is the same.
To your knowledge, was this one of the first things that was done at the Sheriff's Crime Lab with the gun was to do these, for want of a better term, micro photos.
I know that that is the first thing that was done at the crime lab, is that it was photographed in the studio in the condition that it's in here in these exhibits.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd like to mark an exhibit, and this would be People's 90. I believe that's next in order.
That is correct.
Mr. Brunon, and I'm trying to see if I can find the photograph that but he had some questions to you about an ungloved hand that was near the. Maybe it was. Mr. Jackson's telling me quadruple eye. It was a photograph of what appeared to be an ungloved hand near Miss Bag.
Yes, sir.
In the photograph. And the questions back and forth were, who had the ungloved hand near Miss Clarkson and near the handbag? Do you recall those?
I do.
Now we've located this photograph. It's been marked as now as People's 90 identification. Does this assist you in any gloved hand is?
Yes.
Please explain.
It's clearly Miss Clarkson's hand in that photograph, by the photographer standing in front of her and to her right. If it were me seated here in the witness stand, it would be a photographer standing right here in front of me, to my right leg, shooting down this way. In that photo, that's Sergeant Katz's hand with the glove on and the watch in the upper left-hand corner, Clarkson. But above his hand in the top of the photo, left of center, you can see the sleeve cuff portion of the jib wearing. And then on the right-hand photo, you can see the leopard print pattern of the purse. And then to the right of that, where I'm pointing the laser, is, I believe, the lapel of Miss Clarkson's jacket. And then to the right of that, this white area, I believe, is the wood arm of the chair she was seated in.
Thank you. Your Honor, could I ask the defense, since we don't have access to it, to put up what they'd marked as, I believe, it was a triple I or four times I?
Quadruple I, I to the fourth.
Thank you. Maybe that's the best way to say it. Let me ask you, is this the photograph that Mr. Brunon showed you earlier?
Yes.
When you were discussing this issue with him?
It is.
And now with People's 90 for identification, you're able to tell us that that hand that we see in I to the fourth is the same hand we see here, Miss Clarkson's, correct?
Yes.
You were also asked about what you at first thought was tooth material that was found or you saw on Miss Clarkson's dress as she sat in this chair. Is that right? Do you recall that? And you didn't collect that.
Correct, I did not.
And why not? Does that go back to what we were talking about earlier?
It does.
The kind of jurisdictional boundaries between the investigating agency, the LA Sheriff's, and the coroner's office.
That's correct.
Now, you thought it was tooth material, but you later learned that it was something else?
Excuse me, this is going to call for hearsay.
Do you have any personal knowledge on this issue?
Other than what you were told by someone
Yes.
else?
Thank you, Your Honor.
I do not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Get ordered a week.
Mr. Brunon asked you about Stan White and that you'd known him for a while, had been friends with him. Is that correct?
Yes.
You told us at the beginning of, I think, my examination with you that you were there for over 30 hours. You left at some point to get some sleep and then came back, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, you even used your cell phone while you were out there.
I did.
How late did you stay at this crime scene on February 4th of 2003?
Till about 8 o'clock in the evening.
And again, I don't want to repeat it all because Mr. Brunon asked you some questions, but Why then and why did you leave? And who else left?
Myself, Sergeant Katz, Detectives Tomlin and Fournier were there. We had completed the crime scene investigation, and we were going to leave the property back to Mr. Spector or his representatives, which were actually his attorneys.
And were there people there ready to take over this crime scene from you?
They showed up at the completion of our investigation. Yes, they arrived and showed up.
Who all showed up?
Excuse me, we get a foundation of personal knowledge on this.
Well, he says he was there. I assume he's talking to who he observed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Stanley White showed up, to my surprise, and another private investigator named Jay Romaine, Romaine, who's a former Los Angeles police officer, as well as Robert Shapiro, Mr. Spector's attorney, as well as Michael Bodden and Henry Lee, and another attorney, Mr. Shapiro's associate, Sarah Kaplan.
Jay, what was his name? Jay Romaine?
Romaine,
Did you know him?
I did not.
You never met him before.
I met him the night previous. He had shown up with another associate of Mr. Spector's and wanted to obtain some items, some medication from the home, and I'd met him that evening.
But that was the first time.
Correct.
So because of that, you knew he was associated with Mr. Spector. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
The other people that you'd mentioned, had you ever met them before? Introduced to you that evening, February 4th.
Mr. Shapiro and Ms. Kaplan I met before. I had met Henry Lee at a
Yeah, Nancy, you're kind of right. Like, he did want to get some, and she didn't want to. She wanted to go home. I don't think she even really wanted to go with him, but I think that, he had connections. She was an actress. She had things lined up, but they weren't like main things. Like, she had like an info commercial thing lined up, but no like big roles or anything. So I think that she went with him to make connections because, he was a big shot. But she went to have a drink at his house, and then she wanted to leave. And he didn't want her to leave. And in the past, he's threatened women with guns, and he's never hurt any of them before. He's scared them, but he's never hurt any of them before. So I don't think he intended to do anything. I think it just happened. And of course, people that know guns will say, well, it doesn't just happen. He had to have pulled the trigger, and that's true. But I don't think he meant to. They were drunk, or he was drunk. I don't know if she was drunk. He was drunk. And he did something. I don't think he had the intent to do what he did, but he did it. So that's why. So yeah, I agree with Judy. I don't think he meant to do it. But the whole thing about her doing it to herself is ridiculous, in my opinion.
Earlier. Okay. So could you briefly explain was this some kind of transition? Did you hand the keys over to them? How was this done?
Essentially, yes, it was. It was, we're done here. The house is yours. Have a nice night. Detectives Tomlin, Fournier had a brief conversation, I believe, with Mr. Shapiro in the kitchen of the home, and myself and Sergeant Katz, Stan White, Jay Romaine, Henry Lee, and Michael Bodden stood kind of in the foyer area of the home talking.
So they actually entered the home. Is that correct? While you were still there?
Yes,
Did they have booties on?
they did not.
Any hairnets?
No, sir,
You see any gloves at that time?
I did not.
Okay. Could I just have a moment, please, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Ross?
Detective Lilienfeld, the division responsible between the coroner and sheriff, and it is a basic guide as to who does, kind of guideline range. Did Pena ask you to do anything at the scene on February 3rd or February 4th?
He did not to my memory, no, sir.
And that would include summoning you over to the stairs, pointing out an item on either the 6th or 10th stair and say, hey, I think this is evidence, words to that effect, and you better gather it.
If he did that, he did not do it to me, nor did I see that. It is possible that occurred. My partner, Sergeant Katz, actually physically resembles me somewhat, but it didn't happen to me.
He didn't ask you about the, did you even see him up there, by the way?
At the scene, yes, sir.
You saw him up on the stairs?
Oh, no, I did not.
Yeah. Because that'd have been an odd place for him to be, right?
I couldn't say.
All right. Did you see him over examining the chest of drawers where the holster was found?
I did not.
Okay. So if he said that he found the evidence and directed the sheriff to pick it up off the stairways, that wouldn't be consistent with your recollection, would it?
That's argumentative.
Well, given the testimony, he can ask him if given his answers as well, I'm going to allow him to answer that question. Would that have been you assuming that that's his testimony, would that have been you he was talking to?
It is possible. Like I said, the time period that Dr. Pena was there at the home and doing his examination, I wasn't standing or hovering over him the entire time. I, in fact, was in and out of the room or away from that area and in other parts of the home.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking you is, do you have a memory of him summoning you or anybody else up to the stairway and pointing out some evidence and say, you guys ought to collect this?
I have no memory of that, no, sir.
And you weren't informed that that happened, were you?
No, sir.
And you don't have any recollection of seeing him on the stairs, do you?
I do not.
And likewise, about the chest of drawers, he didn't ask you or suggest to you that fingerprints be taken off that, did he?
He did not.
We've talked about this ammunition, I think it's Smith. Is it plus P?
Is plus P, but as I testified earlier, the entity that designates that name is given it the name plus P, I believe.
You said that for several factors, you thought that there might be some sexual overtones to the investigation?
Yes, sir.
And you've described everything that you observed concerning any sexual overtones in this case, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And there was no torn clothing. There was no positive sexual examination kit. There was nothing other than your theory consistent with that, was there?
I'm sorry, sir, you'll have to re-ask that question.
All right. There was a rape kit done on Miss Clarkson, correct? Or a sexual assault kit, I guess is the correct nomenclature, is it not?
It is.
And that was negative, wasn't it?
I do not know the results of that.
She certainly didn't, her thing didn't appear as if it had somebody, as I said, clawing at her, pulling at her clothing, correct?
It did not.
Okay. And up until even today, you haven't inquired of your scientific services or the coroner's toxicology department or anybody else whether or not there is a blood test for Viagra, right?
I'm unaware of if there is not.
But the reason you're unaware is because you made no efforts to become aware, right?
Correct.
All right. So this was just a state of mind that you had upon your initial exam. The possibility of some sort of sexual activity was a state of mind you had upon your initial examination of the scene, right?
Correct.
You also kept as evidence the Zantac and Mylanta. Was that because there might be a possibility of upset stomach or something?
I didn't know what those medications were for.
You mentioned that you were present for some examination of the unexpended bullets in this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when was that? When was that examination?
Some point in time after the incident, obviously, but I couldn't give you the exactly when. I've been on the periphery of this investigation for many years, so I've kind of had contact off and on with specifically the evidence here over the 4-year period. Not my guy that did the scene.
Well, you testified about being present. What's your best recollection of how many days, weeks, or months, or even years for that matter, had passed between the time the evidence was gathered and the time that you saw this swabbing activity?
That would have been at least months afterwards. I believe I'm the one that actually was tasked with retrieving the ammunition from where it was perhaps being stored and bringing it back to the lab.
Sure.
Mr. Brennan,
10 minutes maximum.
what about redirect?
Nothing at this point, but, you know.
How's your schedule?
It's your leisure, Judge. I can stick around into the lunch hour.
All right, we're gonna, well, we can, but 10 minutes in lawyer speak is usually 20 minutes in real time at least. So. And we've got to get the jury fed and some other things. So we're going to go ahead, keeping in mind the admonition, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our recess till 1:30 this afternoon. Thank you.
I did not look to see how long the next clip is. We might just go ahead and go to the trial and start on time today. Let me take a look. Part. I think we're on part 6 of his. Oh. We have time to finish him. It's only 20 minutes. Cool. Come on, StreamYard. Hey, just because. Did I miss anybody else coming in?
Miss Sarah Kaplan. She is here along with her counsel, Mr. Michael Nassatir, Nassatir. And I think we all know what this, at least generally, what the subject matter is about. And it's the defense position, Your Honor, that first of all, we intend to assert the privilege on behalf of Mr. Spector because, as the court well knows, there was an attorney-client relationship one time. Did it in fact even continue? That intends to also assert, since she's not the holder of it, Mr. Spector is. And it is further my understanding that she feels, based on the fact of her legal and her ethical obligations as a member of the bar of the state of California, that she can put a position is to testify in these proceedings before the jury regarding this incident. So as indicated, she feels that it is a direct interference with a relationship between Mr. Spector and herself. I'm also authorized to inform the court that she has made it clear that she does not intend to testify. Now, of course, that presents certain issues for the court. And rather than just spring it on the court before the jury at that time, we've tried to do it here out of fairness to the court and also out of fairness to Ms. Kaplan. And Ms. Kaplan's lawyer is here, Your Honor. If the court wishes to inquire of him, he's waiting outside in the anteroom with Ms. Kaplan, and he may want to elaborate further on this, or he may have questions that the court may want to pose to him that he can answer. But I can tell you, it's my understanding that she believes, based on her ethical and legal obligations, her relationship with Mr. Spector, and the fact of the privilege, she does not intend to testify in these proceedings, which potentially could lead us down an ugly path. So I raise it with the court at this time out of the present.
I think I clicked on the wrong one. Wait, no I didn't. No I didn't. Oh wait, I'm so confused. No, that's right. Why? This is supposed to be the detective. It says Detective Mark Lilienfeld, Part 6. Why are they arguing about the other detective's testimony?
To give the court a heads up so that the court can give us some direction as to where it wants to go in terms of where we're going to be this afternoon on this. Because I think we are going to get to this afternoon. My belief is that it's completed Ms. Kaplan very rapidly. So,
Court TV, stop it. I guess they're just bringing this up now outside the presence of the jury. It just confused me. But you guys know I'm easily confused, so it's not unusual for me to be confused. Stop it! See, if I had just left it alone. It's covering. Stop it!
clear that Mr. Spector objects to this. He asserts the privilege, and I've already laid out previously the potential witnesses' position on this. And as I've indicated, if the court wishes to hear from Mr. Nassatir, he's right outside and ready to go.
We can wait until this witness has completed his testimony. and then we address this?
Which would have been the appropriate thing to do with the jury waiting, is to finish with this witness, and before that witness is called, is then to ask for an out of presence rather than delay the jury for as much time as we've just delayed them.
Well, the only reason I brought it up is because we want to have this resolved, if we can, before they call Stan White. Because if they call Stan White, then we have another position that it's going to be a cumulative testimony and she should not have to testify anyway. That's why I brought it up.
That's a different issue. We'll
I
get to
understand.
that issue when we get to it.
And Your Honor, I would agree that our side, from the prosecution standpoint, we would like to resolve this issue before Stan White's called.
I can resolve it whenever you're ready to resolve it, but right now we're on the jury's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's proceed. The jurors and the alternates have returned. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. 10 minutes. Oh. All right. I want to finish up on this 5:40 on the afternoon of the 3rd. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You guys were still doing your scene examination, and you asked them to leave and come back, and they came back an hour and a half later, right?
Yes, sir.
So they were on scene approximately 7 o'clock that evening. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, by the time they had begun, had you guys marked the evidence items? Had you placed your little tags down by then?
Yes, sir.
All right. So there's no point to point out a piece of evidence that had already been identified and tagged by them, correct?
I'm sorry, sir. You have to ask that one again.
Okay. As I understood what you just told me, that by the time the coroner's finally admitted to the scene, you folks had done your examination of the foyer and stair area and had placed your evidence tags down.
Yes, sir.
So evidence had already been found by the time they first were admitted, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the issue of the bullets, let's just go step by step what happened with them. At the scene, Sergeant Katz examined the gun, determined it was had some unexpended cartridges within the cylinder, correct?
Yes, sir.
And those photographs that I showed you this morning and that Mr. Dixon has shown you show steps in the process of examining the gun. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, at some point, the cylinder was released. The cartridges were removed from the cylinder by Mr. Katz. Is that right?
Yes.
And that was done at the scene?
Yes.
And that was done simply by him holding the gun, releasing the...
Actually, I think you just dump the gun upside down the bullets, the cartridges will fall out.
Okay. Actually, once a cartridge is expended, it sometimes expands, right?
Yes.
And at least on those, you frequently have to either use an ejector. That there's an ejector rod in the front of the cylinder, right?
Correct.
And kind of start with the back. Did you see how he actually then once the bullets could, or the cartridges could be removed from the cylinder, they were placed into a single evidence envelope. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And insofar as he had to use his hand, he was using the same hand handling the gun with, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And you're familiar with the California Department of Justice, right?
I am, sir.
And are you familiar with their Bureau of Forensic Services?
I am not.
The fact that the California Department of Justice promulgates and then distributes its guidelines on various justice issues, including the handling of evidence.
I am.
And are you aware that the Department of Justice Bureau of Forensic Services has said that when you're removing bullets from a revolver, they should be packaged in individual envelopes?
I am unaware of that specific guideline.
Okay, may I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm showing you a document that's captioned California Department of Justice, Bureau of Forensic Services, Physical Evidence Bulletin, Firearms Evidence Collection Procedures, and then down toward the bottom it says unloading revolvers. And why don't you just read that paragraph there and see if that will familiarize you with their procedures.
Okay.
Now, that agency at least people to be individually packaged, right?
Yes, sir.
Know why that would be?
Why that agency believes that?
Yes, sir.
I'm not asking you to speculate.
Do you have personal knowledge?
I do not.
The objection is sustained.
All right. If you put a group of items, some containing trace evidence and some not, into the same container, there is a chance that there will be a transfer of that trace evidence, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so once the bullets are, well, one other question before I leave that. In a 6-shot revolver, the expended round immediately after a shot is at top dead center, is that right?
It should be, yes, that's correct, at the 12 o'clock position.
Okay, and that's where the expended round was discovered in this case, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And with a 6-shot revolver, which is what this was, there is a round that would be at bottom dead center, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that round would be shielded from at least the front part by the frame of the gun that continue. You think that with this particular model of firearm, that round that is at bottom dead center would not be completely shielded from the any blowout from the front by the frame of the gun?
Objection argumentative at this point. He gave his answer.
The objection's overruled. Let me answer.
I don't know the answer to your question, I'm sorry.
Okay. You do know that that round is going to be behind the frame, however, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, once the bullets were placed in the envelope, they're taken to the evidence locker or to the evidence booking room, booked, and then placed into the evidence locker. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And they stayed there for an unknown period of time until some months later, you again observed them at the sheriff's crime lab, correct?
That's correct.
Over on Beverly, right?
That's correct.
All right. And at that time, at least you and criminalist Renteria were present in some examination room. Is that right?
That's correct.
Was there anybody else there?
Other criminalists working on other
Okay.
evidence.
How about the particular workstation Mr. Renteria was using? Just you?
I don't remember. It was in my life, it was a non-event. I just don't recall.
Okay. But you remember enough of the non-event to remember that there was some swabbing going on of the projectile portion, the bullet portion of the cartridge, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what did Mr. Renteria do? He took the cotton swab. Did he put it in any solvent, do you know?
I don't know.
Do you even know if it was a cotton swab?
Again, I don't know.
When you say it was swabbing it, what are you describing?
He had the item in one hand and some type of other item in the other hand. And it was a non-event. I wasn't paying close attention to it. It's a pretty large room, larger than this courtroom. And there are different workstations where the criminalists conduct different examinations on different items of evidence. There's actually glass doors. When you walk by the hallway, the doors are secured, but you can look inside and see them all doing their work.
Were you inside the laboratory or outside one of the glass doors or windows?
Both. I was both.
Well, at the point in time he was doing what you believe was swabbing the bullet, where were you?
I walked in through the door while he was there doing what he was doing.
Okay. By describing it as a non-event, it sounds to me like you were not paying critical attention to it so you could sometime later testify step by step by step what he was doing.
Absolutely. I think I just happened to be there for another reason. I wasn't there to supervise or to watch him perform that task.
Okay. So you weren't there as with the intent of being an observer for this process. It was an unimportant event in your investigative life. And at this point, your best belief is he only swabbed the bullet, the projectile portion?
Yes,
But it sounds to me like you weren't paying close enough attention that you could say with a high degree of certainty that that's all he did.
Are you, excuse me, are you able to answer the question?
I am not, no.
All right, the objection is sustained.
So he may have done something else when you weren't watching?
Absolutely.
Okay. In any event, the swab that he used, did you see what he did with that?
I did not.
See if he used more than one swab?
I did not.
Okay. Final subject, I'm going to ask you about you saw a photograph, what we kind of close-up photographs of the guns.
Yes, sir.
Gun. And in that, you said the gun appears to be in the same condition at the time of the photograph as the time you found it at the scene, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so let's just start with the first point, and that is, when was the photograph taken?
In the crime lab, I think within a day or two of the murder happening.
Okay. Do you have a clear recollection of that?
I do. That I do have a clear recollection of.
And you think it was within a day or so as opposed to sometime in early March?
My recollection is that it was rapidly within the time of the murder, perhaps a day or two or three, yes.
Well, perhaps it was, you just said. Does that also hold out the possibility of perhaps it was at a later time?
That possibility exists. Again, that too was a non-event. I mean, I'm back and forth to the crime lab sometimes several times a day, dealing with the crime lab personnel. And once I've completed my task, if they happen to be doing other tasks with other evidence on other cases, I may glance at it or look at it, but that doesn't have any bearing on my purpose or function for being there.
When you're saying, again, this is a non-event, I take it you weren't there to carefully monitor the photographic process to make sure that it photographed everything that was relevant on the piece of evidence. Is that a fair statement?
I hate it when they do this. Are you asking him to kind of discredit him? Because you're asking the wrong person. If you really want to know this information, get the lab tech on the stand. Or are you asking the detective because you know he doesn't know and you're getting him to say, oh, this was a non-event, because it makes him look bad, like he doesn't know what he's talking about. If I was this detective, I wouldn't be using the term non-event, because that does sound bad.
Very accurate, yes.
When you say it appears to be the same, are you saying it appears to the naked eye, to my naked eye, to be the same?
By the same, you mean the same weapon?
No, well, yeah, we're going to assume that. I think that I took the questions to be, did the condition of any tissue or blood on the gun, did that appear to be the same as it was at the scene? Did you take it to mean, did the gun appear to be the same?
The answer to your question is yes. The gun would be the same, and the condition of the gun would be the
Okay, now when you're talking about appears to be the same in reference to the to my naked eye to be the same.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now you didn't at the scene making where on the barrel, where anywhere on the gun there were items that appeared to you to be blood stains. You didn't make that kind of notation, did you?
No.
So you were relying on your memory as to which say generic blood may have been on that gun. And changes that occurred, they weren't so gross that you would notice them, correct?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. And the answer is yes. If in fact there were changes.
But the minimal changes could involve the trace evidence, correct?
Jackson, that's Assuming acting on evidence. If there were changes.
Assuming as a hypothetical, overruled.
If there were changes, they wouldn't necessarily be visible to you, would they?
Hypothetical question, the answer would be yes.
Okay, I think the answer would be no. Let me ask it. I ask it in a negative way. If there were changes to the trace evidence, would you necessarily be able to see that?
No.
Dried blood will flake off of an item, correct?
Yes.
That can be done, or that is done, that forensically items with trace or grossly visible amounts of blood are placed into packaging that will maintain.
That's correct.
Okay. Do I have any time left? Because all right, can I reserve any minutes I have left for another witness at some point? Because I'm done at this point.
Thank you. Redirect.
Is he asking that I yield?
I yield my minutes. That's what.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you for being here. Subject to recall, you're excused. You may step down. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, I think we've reached the issue that Mr. Rosen brought up.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's some matters that we're going to have to do outside your presence. If you'd keep in mind the admin.
There I am. Stupid StreamYard. Okay. So, this is going to portal us over to the trial. I'm going to go grab another cup of coffee, take a quick break, and then I will see you guys over there in about 15 minutes. I'm making this for my husband. It's his favorite football team. And it has got an awful lot of pink on it. I don't know why a Dolphins helmet has so much pink on it. I don't think he'll mind, though. I just don't know why they have so much pink. It's like outlined in pink. I don't know why there's so much pink on it. And for me, I got Gators. Travis was like, oh, they didn't have any hurricanes? Like, no, honey, they didn't have any canes. I'm sorry. He grew up and he was born in Polk County, Florida. But then moved to Palm Beach County. The other night on Biggins' channel, somebody got arrested in Green Acres. And I was like, honey, it's Green Acres. Come here. Because that's where he went to high school. So he's like major Dolphins fan, Hurricanes fan. And I'm North Florida. So, well, when I was little, I was Tampa Bay fan because we lived in Sarasota, Bradenton, Sarasota area. And then moved up here, and everything up here is Gators. And I worked at Shands Hospital, which is not technically, the hospital itself is not UF, but it's on UF property, and the doctors are they're employed by the university. I was employed by Shands. It's really weird how it's split like that. The parking garage belongs to the university. The land, the campus, like it's on the campus. There are college classes like the doctors, the medical school, the nursing school at the university is in the same building that the hospital's in. But the hospital is owned by Shands. It's crazy how it's divided up. It's weird. But so I'm a huge Gator fan. So but I'm not like a big football watcher. I just want them to win, but I don't necessarily want to sit and watch a game. I like to go to games. Go Bulls. I like to go to games. I don't like to sit and watch them on TV. I like to go to games. Okay, so I'm gonna take a break and pour you guys over, and I will see you over there. And thank you, Judy, my wonderful mod. And if you're not going to join me over there, I will see you. Oh, before you guys leave, members only tomorrow is going to be at 10 instead of, I was going to do it at 12 o'clock like I did last week. But my stepkids are coming over, so I'm going to make it a little earlier. We're going to start at 10. And we're going to do the second part of Jennifer McCabe's testimony at 10 o'clock. And I'm trying to decide if we're going to do Phil tomorrow. Yeah, we'll do Phil tomorrow. So we'll do Phil Spector first, and then at 10 we'll do the members only. And we're going to end about, let me see, it's about 3 hours. We'll probably end between like 1 and 2 o'clock. Does that sound good? Okay, so I'll see you over there. If not, have a good weekend, and I'll see you Monday.